You know that feeling, right? You cram for a huge exam, you absolutely ace it, and then, poof, a week later, it's all gone. Well, what if I told you there's a powerful learning method, something developed by a Nobel Prize winning physicist, that could actually change all that for good? We're talking about the Feynman Technique, and really, it all kicks off with the mindset of the man who created it.
And here he is, the man himself, Richard Feynman. I love this quote because with just a few humble words, he kind of sets the stage for this whole learning framework. See, it's not about being some kind of untouchable genius. It's about a simple, repeatable process that anyone can use.
I mean, it is a frustrating feeling, isn't it? You spend hours studying, you're highlighting, you're rereading, and then you realize that knowledge is just so fragile. It's almost like it's stored on a faulty hard drive. But here's the thing. That's not a personal failure. It's a failure of the method. And Feynman's own experience, well, it showed him just how deep this problem really goes.
All right, so to really get this, we have to go back to this really pivotal moment in Feynman's career. This was back in 1952, when he was teaching in Brazil. And honestly, what he found there? It completely exposed this massive crisis in education.
So, on paper, his students were absolute superstars. Seriously, they went to every single lecture, they took amazing notes, and their exam scores? Immaculate. They could spit back these super complex formulas, recite thermodynamic principles. Everything looked perfect. Absolutely great. But then came the reality check. He asked them something simple, like defining Brewster's angle. And they did. They recited the textbook definition word for word. Perfect. But then he pointed to the bay right outside the window and asked them, okay, so is the light reflecting off the water right now polarized at Brewster's angle? And you know what he got? Silence. Complete and total silence. They couldn't connect the formula they just recited to the real world, literally just feet away.
And that, right there, illustrates the core problem perfectly. His students were masters of memorization, but they had zero understanding, you know? They had all the right words, the vocabulary of physics, but none of its actual power. Feynman had a great name for it, cargo cult science. Basically, going through all the motions of learning, having all the superficial forms, but without any of the real substance underneath.
So, what's the antidote to this illusion of knowing? Well, the answer lies in Feynman's own philosophy about what it means to learn something. See, Feynman wasn't just a brilliant physicist. He was a legendary teacher. I mean, his real genius was this incredible ability to take something wildly complex and make it simple. It was a skill so profound that even Bill Gates called him the greatest teacher I never had. And that brings us right to his core principle. For Feynman, the ultimate test of whether you knew something wasn't about passing an exam. Nope, it was about whether you could explain it in plain, simple language. That one single idea, that's the engine that drives this whole technique. Okay, so that's the why. We get the philosophy. Now, let's dive into the how. Let's break down the actionable, four-step method that you can start using like today. All right, here's a quick look at the entire cycle. As you can see, it's a really simple loop, but it's designed to do one thing, take you from just kind of recognizing something to truly, deeply understanding it. Okay, let's walk through this. Step 1 is easy. Just choose a concept you want to learn. Grab a blank piece of paper and write the name of the topic right at the top. Simple. Now step 2, this is where the magic happens. You have to pretend you're teaching it to a child. Or, just explain it in your own super simple words. This is the real test. Step 3 is about finding your blind spots, because you're going to get stuck. You're going to use jargon you can't explain, or your explanation will feel a little shaky. That's where you found the edge of your knowledge. And that's your cue to go back to the books, back to the source material. Finally, step 4, review and simplify. Go back to what you wrote, clean it up with what you've just learned, and try to come up with a really good, simple analogy. That's what makes it stick. But why is this simple little loop so much more powerful than just, rereading your notes? Well, the difference between memorization and real understanding is absolutely profound. Okay, let's break it down. On one side, you have memorization. That's about recalling isolated facts, just recognizing terms. It helps you pass tests, sure, but it's fragile knowledge. On the other side, you have true understanding. That's about connecting concepts, explaining things in your own words, and being able to solve brand new problems you haven't seen before. This technique builds durable, flexible knowledge that you can actually use. And this isn't just theory, by the way. The research actually backs this up.
There was a recent study that showed students using the Feynman technique improved their language proficiency scores by an average of 17%. That's because it's not passive. It actively forces your brain to process information on a much, much deeper level.
You know, I saw this comment from a Reddit user that just hits the nail on the head. They said that things like spaced repetition and active recall, they're awesome, but they're really built for memorization. The Feynman technique, though, is laser-focused on one thing: understanding. All right, so to get the most out of this, there are a few pro tips and common pitfalls to keep in mind. Because, like any powerful tool, you gotta know how to use it correctly.
Okay, here are a few key tips. First, you need to understand the topic a little bit before you start. This isn't for learning something for the very first time. It's for taking what you've learned and making it stick. Second, choose your topics carefully. It's amazing for concepts, but maybe not the best tool for memorizing, say, visual information. Third, and this is maybe the most important rule, avoid jargon at all costs. The whole goal is simplicity. If you use a complex term, you have to be able to explain that term simply too. And a great pro tip, combine it with other methods. Once you have that perfect, simple explanation, turn it into a flashcard for spaced repetition. And finally, if you can, try to teach it to a real person. Seriously, the feedback you get is pure gold.
When you start using this technique regularly, you'll realize it's not just another study hack. It's more than that. It's a fundamental shift in your entire mindset about what it means to learn.
And this quote from Feynman, man, it just gets to the absolute heart of it. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. That's the whole point of this technique. It's a weapon against that illusion of knowing. It forces me to be honest with ourselves about what we don't understand. It's basically a tool for intellectual honesty. So the next time you're learning something new, don't just ask yourself, hey, can I remember this? Ask yourself, could I explain this to a kid simply? Because that is the real test of understanding. So I'll leave you with a challenge. What's the one thing you're going to try to truly understand today?